Welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics. I can assure you the conversation during the break was as enticing as it was during the show. So let's continue with the deliberations right here on the round table. I'm joined by Anthony Ngeru, the head of communications research at UDA, Ishmael Nyaribo, he's an advocate of the High Court, Philip Kisia, governance expert, and Haman Manyora, political analyst. Right before the break, we're to get the sentiments from Philip Kisia, because I assume some Kenyans think the government has listened, the president has listened, and we've seen a raft of concessions. Is this enough to deflate the current agitation by the youth, or it's simply the start of the work, a drop in the ocean?
Jess, you know, even just before I probably make a comment on your question, I painfully listened to my brother from Kenya Kwanza, Secretariat Communication Office. But I could forgive him because, you know, he's salaried and he has a job to protect his office. And of course, about the price of unga coming, the president had promised Kenyans that he'll, within weeks he takes over, he'll bring down the cost of unga to 70 bob. It is still at 100 plus. He promised to bring down the cost of from the highest 160 down to 100. We are still at 170. That His Excellency that Kenyans to do. But, well, I must forgive him. You know, he's a young man, you know, working towards survival. It's important. But let me say this. A raft of measures, and that's why I gave him a C. In fact, a C plus. In fact, I was, you know, if I a C minus, I was a little bit a C plus. Why do I say so? Let us look at one of the decisions he made a few days ago. He suspended the appointments of CAS. What Kenyans are saying is that it is not necessary to have that position because it does not add any value. We have technocrats in the ministries who can perform those functions. So he is only keeping us in abeyance, waiting for the right moment to pounce on Kenyans with the appointments of the cronies who can help him continue mismanaging our country. Scrapping those offices because they don't add value. This country has been here for 60 years. Mwai Kibaki, an astute economist, ran this government, I think, with 4 or 5 advisors. William Ruto, in his, you know, I don't know who advised him, but he has decided that each ministry must have 2 or 3 advisors. State House itself has about 20 or so advisors. Then we have the secretariat with people like my brother here. Do we need advisors? So that was a low-hanging fruit. He should have completely dealt with it during his address to the nation. I'm happy he saw the need of scrapping off the offices of First Lady, Second Lady, and other ladies. They are not necessary. They are not adding any value. They are just consuming public funds. So, credit, that's why probably he got a C+. Now, there are things like OPEX, the OPEX account, operational account. You know, do we really need that money when Kenyans have other challenges? In my view, that is one area was a low-hanging fruit. He should have immediately gone and cut it down by 100% and only left money for operation and maintenance, because those are things we can postpone. They are not urgent. They can be done a year from today, 2 years from today. This country will not come to a standstill because you have to renovate State House at the cost of 900 million or the Deputy President's office at a cost of 700 million shillings. Those are things that we can actually put in abeyance. Okay. Then there's this issue called the confidential vote. Times are hard. That's an account that is never audited. It is shrouded with a lot of mystique. That's where that account, I can tell you, is used to bribe people to support this government. If indeed William Ruto was sincere, he should have probably scrapped that budget line. We don't need that money being spent the way it is being spent. Now, the president had an opportunity to deal this matter with one bullet. One bullet. He fired so many bullets with no results. Okay? Because if you look at what you're calling a raft of measures, how much are we likely to spend? How much savings are we likely to create? If he had come, number one, in my view, and said, and been very emphatic, and said, I am going, and I've said this before, because if you look at the office of the president, deputy president, and others in the executive, they consume about 9% of our budget. Is that necessary? That presidency does not produce anything. It's a consumption office. They consume. Can that money be redirected to ministries, to departments that produce for this country, other than spending 9% of budget just for consumption purposes? Now, finally, if the president was indeed serious, there are two things that probably should have done. Number one, I expected him to dissolve cabinet, because no Kenyan, I can tell you, maybe just my brother here and Kenya Kwanza, a few of them, in fact some of them are already running away, they have no confidence in that government. They have no confidence in cabinet. So he should have taken that opportunity to send the entire cabinet home. He would have restored confidence in his government. Finally, the issue of corruption. My brother says that there's nothing like corruption in Kenya. But what is corruption? Corruption is just dishonest behavior. You're being dishonest. So if you're being dishonest, you're corrupt. Now, I have said before, in fact, in your own admission as Kenya Kwanza, you have admitted that we lose 3 billion Kenya shillings daily through corruption. That's a mind-boggling figure. I mean, if you extrapolate, it's over 1 trillion shillings. The Kenya Kwanza government is just looking for 346 billion. If he was serious and he wanted to fight corruption, because I know he has capacity to fight corruption. He has capacity. He would have said, going forward, if you are caught in corruption, I will deal with you as head of state. So if he was looking for money to finance development, to finance the operations of his government, he should have dealt the issue of corruption. There was no mention, he just mentioned corruption in passing. It's like something that, is actually being forced down his throat. William Ruto has never been known to fight corruption. He does not believe in fighting corruption. Maybe after this interview, my brother, you can go and ask him, why is he not serious about fighting corruption?
Interesting. And before we get a right of reply, Wakili, as you come in and perhaps echo what has been said, LSK says the establishment of that task force is unconstitutional. The task force that is to look into the public debt we have as a country. They argue that the mandate to audit public debt rests with the Office of the Auditor General. Your view as an advocate, is this a duplication of roles? Is the task force unconstitutional? Well, what's your say?
Well, I echo the sentiments of my president, the LSK president, Faith Odhiambo, that indeed it is unnecessary to appoint a task force at this time. But let's separate wheat from chaff, or chaff from wheat. The president has a right under law to appoint a task force. That one, let's get it clear. Irrespective of the circumstances we are in, the president has a right to find out where there is a gap. He can, by a public order, say, I want a task force on ABC. Now, what is making it illegal and unconstitutional is there is no gap currently. There is no gap of staff. I mean, we have a law, we have Article 229, we have the Auditor General, we have control of budget, we have ISPAC. There is no gap, necessitating that he should pick again people from the private sector to come and do what should be done by an institution mandated to do so under the law. So that's where the problem is. what probably the president could have done if he had proper legal advice is to mandate, simply tell the Treasury that they are failing him and let them provide a proper audit on public debt. So that private sector is represented, then he can say, you are at liberty to request for assistance from the Law Society, East Park, Institute of Policy, and whatever. Yes, KIPRA. So that they just go there to kind of, be part and parcel of the team that already exists. But you see, over a microphone, you just say, I'm appointing, then you say names. When did you contact them? When did they accept that they will want to join you in resolving, that particular. So that is where the real problem is. Okay. So I think the manner and the style, the procedure used is completely wrong. But I think we should be fair to our viewers and say that heads of state have a right and a duty to appoint task forces where there is a gap. And in this particular one, the LSK has emphatically said there is no gap. And that's why I think the president of the Law Society has rejected that offer, yes.
Okay. So, Anthony, how do you react to someone saying the president's efforts are a little bit too late in the day in terms of the net effect, that he would have fired one shot and would have a major effect compared to the multiple concessions he's made with little or minimal effect?
Jesse, I think you are asking the wrong people. The ones that
No.
Well, the president said there's a communication issue. Let's listen to what he'll be told.
Listen, Jesse.
Yes.
You see, first of all, let me start by lauding our AG, Madam Nancy, in our endeavor to safeguarding our public money. And I think one of the things that have come out very clearly in her endeavor to ensure that public funds are utilized in a lawful manner and effectively and efficiently is that within our laws, within our system, there are some lacunas that need to be addressed that are necessitating unnecessary expenditure. And ideally, these sort of lacunas are the ones that need to be addressed through that task force that the president has put in place. Yes, I agree that the Auditor General has the primary mandate of, publicizing our domestic and international debt. But some of these, some of these channels that are necessitating this unnecessary spending needs to be addressed. And that is why he holistically called in for a task force that will sit in and look into such challenges within our system so that everything that is in the public domain is accurate and so that we can cap some of these channels that have been used to, to spend unnecessarily. I wouldn't say it's late. You see, policies are made by men. It doesn't mean that if you come up with a policy that it will be effective and efficient after 10 or 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Over time, policies have the liberty of being refined over time, based on our contextual, where we find ourselves contextually in that particular period in time. So whatever the president has come up with in terms of capping expenditure and also fight corruption, I feel like it is overdue, but something has been taking place behind the scenes. At the same time, I also want to laud the chairperson of SRC. We know very well that the recent increments were gazetted in January. So let's not politicize. For any public servant, it is normal to have salary increments.
Don't you think it was insensitive coming at a time when Kenyans are talking about cutting back?
And that's why I'm saying this is something that was gazetted in January. However, she has also been very, very clear in always standing up to lawmakers who seek unnecessary increments. And something else I also want to laud her for is, currently we are spending 47% of our revenue on salary, and that is way beyond of the required 35%. So even by telling the people who are in their retirement ages to go home, I think that will help us in one way or another in reducing that
the wage bill.
Yeah, that wage bill.
Then tell me this before we cross over to Prof. He raised the issue about suspending the hiring of CASs, yes. Mentioning that it's in ill taste. Perhaps he should have scrapped it off in its entirety. That's what Kenyans were asking for. Prof equally mentioned in terms of the cabinet being dissolved, that lack of confidence is there with the cabinet amongst Kenyans. What do you have to say to those two issues?
Well, in terms of the CAS position, I think it underwent legislative scrutiny, and they found out that it was important to have that position. Okay. However, based on our current wage bill, it is not sustainable. That is why it had to be suspended. It is something which needs to be further scrutinized if it is ideal to have it within our current structure. And something else that I also need to mention about our CSs. Okay. You see, and it's something that we all have to agree. You see, some of these appointments, as much as we are supposed to have technocrats within them, they are beyond our, I don't know how I can put it, but yes, there's that need to have technocrats within our cabinet, and it's important to have them, because we need to have people who really understand different departments and agencies and how they operate. Okay. But we also have to acknowledge the fact that it is not only in Kenya where appointments are political. Even in the US government, even in the British government, it's something which cuts across. Okay. However, in regards to that, I feel like it's important to have technocrats within our cabinets so that we can ensure efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery.
Jesse, the way you are selecting the questions anyway, it's okay, because now, Prof spoke about corruption and said actually there's no corruption in Kenya. I didn't have a chance to retaliate.
Feel free.
And coming from Prof, yes. I think he needs to go back to that, really, because we all know corruption is dishonesty, corruption. The other words for corruption, I've just checked here. I see bribery, being dishonest, receiving a bribe so that you can do something. And now you've asked him questions, and he has simply defended UDA and said we can have CAS, technocrats. And when you look at the brand of people who even proposed to go into that office, he correctly said they should be technocrats. They are not. These are people who are friends to the president. Then after positions were filled in and they could not fit everybody, he decided he made them 37 or something.
You wanted 52.
Yes,
so you can imagine. So it's really, please allow us to snatch mics from each.
Definitely, feel free, it's a round table, that's why.
So I wanted to talk about corruption, but I want first to hear from Prof, really, because I don't want to discuss in a different tone from how can he say there's no corruption in the country?
Jesse,
I agree with him when he said...
When I came in, I met you. This is why when you come in late, and I really must apologize for coming late. It's not my style.
We know that, yes.
Even some viewers have texted me, why people are looking for you. I really apologize. In the problem of coming in late, sometimes you don't know what people have said and you don't know what to say. Allow me to, before I talk about corruption, allow me to just, in response, because it's a round table.
Yes.
We hear this thing about UNGA. It makes me very sad. When anybody, and I invite the president to hear what I'm saying, through him. When you celebrate Unga going at 100, do you know what you are celebrating, Jesse? Because you stay in Nairobi, you don't know. These are the rich men with tracts of land in Kitale. Do you know what it means? If you are selling Unga at 80, 90, 100, it means the farmer cannot sell his maize. Today, and the president comes from what you normally call the bread basket, North Rift. People in North Rift. And that's why young Kalenjin boys and girls are with their fellow Gen Zs. They can see their parents are suffering. With maize in the store, they can't sell. You can't sell maize at 35 shillings per kilo. How did you, I mean, you can't. It's now at 40 shillings per kilo if you are likely to sell. People are already harvesting. And you have something in the store. So you cannot celebrate these prices oblivious of the impact on the farmer who now has maize and cannot sell that maize. That's one point I wanted. The next point was about debt. Auditing debt. Before you audit, why can't you do what is obvious? If somebody asked me, I have a few loans. Yes, I know you must have one also.
Of course.
If you have a loan, somebody asks you, how many do you have? Do you mention the principal? Is the principal your loan? Is that your obligation? If you don't know how much debt you have, you can't look at the principal. It is the principal plus interest. Correct.
Sure.
So how much did we borrow for SGR? The president promised he will tell us. He will reveal the contract, has revealed the contract. So which other public debt do you want to audit when you can't just even tell us how much do we owe the Chinese for SGR? Where is the contract? Magufuli looked at the contract he found. He said only a madman could sign such a contract. You remember that? So let's not play games with Kenya, because I'm repeating this. And you know me, I keep saying, and it's obvious I love this country. This is not time for games. This is time to be serious, to appreciate the problem. And quickly, the wage bill. I'm a firm believer that it's not the size of government that matters. It is what the employees, what the public service does. I believe strongly, for every one worker we have in the public service, we need another 3 or 4. So this idea of wage bill, I don't buy it. What is it they can do to lift this country, to improve our economy, to improve the lives of Kenyans? That's what matters, not the size of the employees and not the wage bill. Let's employ more Kenyans, because the government is perhaps the only employer in this country. So if you freeze employment, hey, if you freeze salaries, how can the economy grow? Because the economy can only grow if people who work, salaried people, have money to spend. Is that how the economy works? The economics works? Correct. So let us not keep preaching this thing of a bloated wage bill. And finally, on corruption. I still believe there's no corruption in this country. Because corruption is done by intelligent people. Corruption is sophisticated. I'm not a policeman. I'm not trained as a policeman. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trained as a lawyer. I'm not even an economist. I've not done business. I'm just there. I'm a liberal, a man in the liberal world. But I can put all these thieves in jail if I'm allowed to prosecute them. All of them. One morning, each car kizimbani pale, shika Bible, swear ama Quran ama nini, and I put you in jail. I can do it myself. Because this is cheap theft. Look, Jesse and Philip Kisia will agree with me. How many governors have taken county funds and put in the accounts of their daughters and wives? How many? Don't we know them? So do you call that corruption? That's not corruption.
What about budgeted
that's just
corruption?
Foolish. That is just foolish.
Well, when you have the Auditor General telling you that we budget for corruption.
Yes. No, we budget for theft.
Or theft, okay.
Because I still go back there.
Yes.
For you to budget for corruption, you must do it in a very sophisticated way. What these people do? They just put money there. It's called padding. It's not budgeting corruption. It's called budget padding.
Yeah, okay.
You just put money there. When it goes there, you follow it and take it. That's not corruption. So that's what I mean. What our people do is to steal from us, foolishly, cheaply. Let me tell you this. If we are a serious country, within 1 month, please, I want to repeat, 1 month, 30 days, all former governors and the sitting governors will be in jail within 30 days, all of them. Because what they are doing is not corruption, it's just stealing from the counties. All the governors, and I'm underlining the word all.
Okay.
I want one of them to take me on.
I say this irrespective of how hard it is to prosecute a case, you know?
Allow me
Yes.
to make a comment, Jess. You know, first of all, I feel for my brother because he has to defend a government which has a very bad record, but he's trying his best. But you've asked him very hard questions, including dissolving cabinet. I don't think this man here, you are being unfair to him. I don't think he has capacity.
Why?
To even come. He has no capacity.
Why?
William Ruto is his own advisor. He's his own advisor. So how do you expect a young man like this one to advise William Ruto? Anyway, I'm on the floor. One second. No. You had your time.
Children.
Yes.
We must have confidence in our children.
I have
We
confidence.
cannot dismiss them like that.
Listen, I have confidence in my brother, my younger brother.
Yes.
All right.
Who is like my son. I have
Yes.
a lot of confidence and respect, even for the mere fact that he's here
Yeah.
to defend a government that is not defendable. Is something that is commendable. But let me say this.
It is the way it is coming
Let
out.
me say this. Let me say this.
Okay.
You know, Nani, I like the way you've talked about increasing, the workforce, because it is not about the numbers. It's about productivity.
Yes.
It is an economy that employs people. If an economy is working, you need more people to produce. But when an economy is failing, of course, then you then go to austerity measures like reducing the workforce and so on and so forth. So what we need to do is actually to make sure that our economy functions, that our economy works. Because see, let us not talk about a percentage. We keep on talking about 47% of our revenues. But you see, what is 100% of zero? Is zero.
Zero, yeah.
What we need to do is to collect more revenue, okay? Widen the tax base, we'll have more money coming in. That percentage to revenue will automatically drop.
Sure.
So let us not focus on this 47% of our revenues. It is because we are doing a poor job in terms of collecting revenue, okay? Then when my brother here talks about there not being corruption in Kenya, you know, I've really been taken aback, like my brother Okidi. I'm taken aback. In fact, I may need to see him after this. Sure, just
Don't
Yeah,
go
yeah.
behind the
because
tent.
I must talk to him. Because my senior. I don't want to embarrass him. You see, the government of the Republic of Kenya, not you. You're not in government. Don't defend them. They have already pronounced themselves. They have said they are losing 3 billion. If you work out that figure, it's over a trillion. That is not pocket change, Professor. That's a lot of money.
But stop.
If we can stop that theft, that corruption, that stealing, we have a trillion shillings. So we can't talk about that amount being small. This is outright theft and corruption. We're losing a trillion. And a trillion shillings, Prof, is almost 35% of our budget. So it's a huge hole in our budgeting figures. Okay. Now let me say this, in terms of this public debt auditing. Now, I think the president is trying to buy time, and is wasting our time, like he has always done. And he thinks that by coming up with these measures that are not making sense, that the tempers will cool. The tempers are not about to cool. The tempers are not about to go down if he does not take drastic action to address the challenges that are facing this country. Okay? So trying to introduce some small little games, like Professor says, coming up with some committee, yet we have a very effective, I think, other than Edward Ouko, I think the person who succeeded Edward Ouko, the lady, hats off to her. She's doing a fantastic job and she needs government support. In fact, these are not the people who should be harassed, like they were trying to harass the control of budget, so on and so forth.
Oh, well,
they need to be supported.
Okay.
So the issue of public debt, we already have the Auditor General, and that office is extremely effective and efficient, and Kenyans have a lot of faith trust and hope in that office. We also have the Public Debt Management Office that is housed in Treasury that is supposed to be doing that job. Now you want to introduce another, some committee over 20 people to come and to come and audit billions of shillings within 90 days.
All right.
Are you not just trying to buy time, Mr. President? And I'm happy you're here. And if he listens to you, because I doubt whether he listens to you. He listens to anybody.
The president listens to everyone.
William Arap Somoy Ruto listens to you. That is the problem. The problem is not you. The problem is not cabinet. The problem is the president himself. He believes in himself, which is not a bad idea.
Actually,
but as a leader, as somebody who is exercising leadership, you can only succeed when you listen to people.
All right.
In fact, do more listening than talking.
So, Philip,
actually, you would be surprised that the president is actually listening right now.
Is he?
And
has he sent you a text message?
I want to concur with you.
No, you can't say
briefly
that.
as we take a break.
You see, if you look at the implementation framework of our current government, it is based on 5 key strategies, and one of them, if I can just mention all of them, first it's inclusive growth, eradication of hunger, alleviating the mwananchi, improving the cost of living, and improving our foreign exchange balance, and most importantly, what you have just mentioned, increasing our tax base, because by doing so, we bring more people on board who will contribute to our taxes here in Kenya. And if you look at currently where we are, we collect around 40% of our taxes come from pay as you earn, and that is not sustainable. We have to look at ways that we can expand this, because ideally most of the taxes that we rely on are direct taxes. You see, taxes that are direct from the employer. And if I can just mention the finance bill, which has been subject to a lot of controversy, what it was trying to address was such kinds of issues, so that we can look at ways we can raise more revenues through indirect taxes.
So, Jesse, now you're going for a break, and I just wanted to say
Briefly here.
There is corruption in Kenya, actually. I humbly submit to Prof. And the biggest problem here, it is not that it is sophisticated. It is the human nature of the people in office. By virtue of, by the president actually appointing a task force, this might also be understood as perpetuating corruption. Why do I say this? You see, the guys, the technocrats you mentioned who are sitting in Treasury, every moment a policy is introduced or the president makes a statement, they definitely regroup. They get scared. What's going to happen? What are we going to lose? The way government is run, Prof, you agree with me that the moment a president is announced, there are several cartels of people, several groupings, if you don't want to use the word cartel, who come together and insist on how shall we get this, how shall we get that. If you look at the business environment in Kenya today, there is a group of people who have come together and they insist on directing where, if it is hotel business, where it goes. If it is banking business, where it goes. These are the major problems for our country if you talk about corruption. And it may not be so simplistic to fight corruption unless you understand this and you have read deeply about how people come together to satisfy their own stomachs. And I think that is something that has never been resolved. It was not resolved by Kenyatta. And sometimes, even when you're head of state and you want to fight these cartels, they indeed fight you. They fight you in boardrooms, they fight you through other people, they fight you through even foreign nationals.
Okay.
Why does the president today have, anyway, I don't want to, I can say that later on to Mr. Ngeru.
My hands are tied.
What are you talking about?
Anyway, let's take a short break, gentlemen.
When we come
continue
back,
with the
I should be the first one
discussion. Of course, you'll respond. So let's take that break. We'll be back in a few. Keep it inside politics. Yeah.